Hello, my Mercurial mercenaries. Just a little casual chat. Just switched on the news and saw that Dolores, the singer of the Cranberries, has died. Aged 46. That's no age at all, is it? Aged 46. Not sure of the circumstances yet. The Perfect 10 said to me, "Who are the Cranberries?" And I said, "You know, Zombie." And she looked blankly and I went, and she looked blankly again. So I had to try and remember how the whole song goes, and I was thinking, in your head, zombie, zombie, zombie. Oh, no age at all. No age at all. Wasn't a massive fan, but the Cranberries' music was on MTV in the 90s, back in the time when I used to watch MTV. MTV meant something in the 90s. MTV and MTV2. Hard to imagine now, everyone kind of clustered around the same media outlet. Now it's all so disparate. Everyone can listen to everything, everyone can watch everything, mainly because of YouTube. I don't know why I'm pointing over there, mainly because of YouTube, but everything's just like that. Whereas once it was kind of like that. And so bands like the Cranberries back then would flourish. But the singer of the Cranberries is dead, age 46. Makes you realise, and it's certainly always easier said than done, but we should all live life for today. And for that reason, I thought I'd sit in a confined area and talk to a tiny, tiny camera lens, because this is definitely a valuable use of my time if I get run over by a bus tomorrow. And likewise, this is a valuable use of your time watching this. Isn't it, my mercenaries? Eh? Isn't it? Didn't really have a topic to talk about today, but seeing as you're still watching, let's just talk about something. A weekend or two ago, I needed a new pair of trainers. So I went to the shop that I always go to. It's a shop that's been around forever, and I walked in and there were about 5 trainers on the wall, just dotted around. You know, they put trainers on walls on those little metal tag things to hang them up. And I walked into the shop and there was like a trainer here and then here, and there was one up there, and the rest of it was blank space. I could see that something wasn't quite right, and I could see the shop owner guy just sort of sitting on his seat with his feet on the desk, and he wasn't rushing over to help me, but I sort of stood there for a little bit. And eventually he came over and he said, "I've got something to tell you," he said. "This is our last day of trading, so we haven't got a lot of stock." And I said, "Have you got a shoe in so-and-so size?" And he said, "No, no shoes in that size whatsoever." So I asked, what brought this about then? I mean, I knew really, we all know really. I suppose I was just making small talk, but it did feel like the end of an era for these kind of small independent shops to be vanishing. This little small sports shop, this running shoe shop. And we stood there talking, we brought up the internet. The fact is, everyone buys everything on the internet now. And then I brought up the fact that all the shop fronts are becoming kind of service sector, service industry. And he brought up the vaping. Vaping's a big thing, isn't it? I don't see the appeal myself, but I can pretty much guarantee a lot of you are now looking at your screen going, "Vaping's cool, Mercurial number 6. Don't even think about going and slagging off vaping." But it's got to the point now where you've got a vaping bar next to another vaping bar, next to another vaping bar. These vaping things, I'll be driving along sometimes and it will appear that the car in front is on fire. There'll be smoke billowing out of the windows. You're looking through the rear windscreen and you can't see out the front windscreen. It's just smoke. It's grey. It's like opaque grey. These things, they're only like this, but vaping's a big thing, isn't it? Vaping's a big thing. There'll probably be some health consequences one day, but like we just said, if we're all going to get run over by a bus tomorrow, age 46, what can you do? And then I brought up coffee shops. Service sector, isn't it? It's selling you services, selling you coffee, selling you vaping, but coffee shops are everywhere. And I said this to him, I said, all the little shops that used to be around here, they're all become coffee shops. And he agreed and he said, yeah, He wasn't being particularly negative. He was just agreeing, and he was agreeing that that was the downfall. The internet and vaping and coffee shops. And you get a coffee shop and a vaping shop and a coffee shop and then another coffee shop. And luckily, on the whole, more coffee shops than vaping shops, but coffee shop, coffee shop. And people who aren't that into coffee will say, how can people drink so much coffee? Why do you need so many coffee shops? Well, I've got to that point where I always say coffee's my vice. I don't really know what I mean by that. I'm just talking bollocks really, but I do like going from coffee shop to coffee shop to coffee shop. If you were to go to all the coffee shops in England, you drink a lot of coffee. You could potentially drink a lot of coffee. You could potentially need a lot of trainers if you ran from shop to shop. You'd need independent sports shops to provide you your trainers. Or you could buy them on the internet. I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with this. But I moaned with him, and he was being positive. But I was saying, yeah, it's all coffee shops now. There's no place for local businesses selling actual things. I was probably one of the last people he spoke to as the owner of a small independent trainer sneaker shop. And I'm not sure if that's good or bad for him, having me as one of the final people he speaks to. So I joined in and I moaned to him about the onslaught of coffee shops, and then I walked out of his shop and I went straight to a coffee shop where I had a lovely cup of coffee. And to make matters worse, I then left that coffee shop and went to another different coffee shop and had another coffee. So if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Is that what they say? So, no real point to this video, and I truly assume that most people will have stopped watching by now. But we should try and live for today. And if that means drinking a lot of coffee in a lot of coffee shops and not buying trainers, I suppose so be it. If anyone fancies a cup of coffee in central London this week, or something stronger, drop me a message. Thank you, my mercenaries. Bit of a somber video, that one, my mercenaries. It just didn't seem appropriate to be bouncy. Don't know why. I didn't know the singer of the Cranberries. I've never owned any Cranberries. I couldn't name you more than one song by the Cranberries, although I do know another song by them, but it's just escaped my mind. Do you have to let it linger? I was talking about that on a video at some point in our past, wasn't I? The Cranberries did a song called Linger, and I made a joke about it being about farting in a lift, elevator. That doesn't seem appropriate now either, really. Do you have to let it linger? Over and